Good afternoon. Welcome to the last Finance Committee meeting for 2024. And may 25 be a better year for all of us. Although we've had a nice end from a finance perspective to the year, and a positive budget story, and a positive capital story. And so without giving away the hints of it, let's begin with public speakers.
Thank you. We have 3 registered speakers today. The first speaker will be Brian Fritsch, followed by Maddie Bucky's Highland.
Hello, I'm Brian Fritsch, Associate Director for the Permanent Citizens Advisory Committee to the MTA, PCAC. Our system is very old. Its needs, starkly evidenced by the explosion at the State Street substation and the serious accompanying delays, are many. When the legislature returns in January, we hope that funding the 25 to 29 capital plan is at the top of their agenda. On the operating side, PCAC believes the December plan takes the necessary steps for a successful 2025 and beyond, but there is little margin for error. In addition to addressing the clear risks outlined in the board book, PCAC still seeks answers to a number of budget-related questions, including how the reduced congestion pricing toll will impact the MTA's future debt load, and how bond markets will react to a lower fee structure, how New York City Transit will grapple with its shortfall in needed maintenance workers, the impact of lagging revenue numbers, despite improved overall ridership and some progress fighting fare evasion, which must continue to improve, and how the projected $14 billion in federal support for the next capital plan comes together under a new administration in Washington, D.C. PCAC urges Governor Hochul to keep all tools on hand and find new ones to allow the agency to continue to provide reliable and affordable service while avoiding New Jersey-esque fare increases or service reductions. That includes flexing dollars from highways to transit, as Pennsylvania Governor Shapiro recently did to save SEPTA. We encourage a strong equity lend as Albany weighs potential funding sources for the next capital plan. Most importantly, though, a quarter century into the not-so-new millennium, we can't nickel and dime our aging transit system. We must fully fund the next plan to update our assets without delay. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Maddie Bucky's Highland, who will be followed by David Kupperberg.
Thank you, Mr. Keller, and good afternoon, everybody. My name is Maddie W. Bucky's Highland. For today, I'm going to speak about the finances as we go forward into 2025. With congested pricing now in place, and with the expected date on Sunday, January 5th, I'm not sure what time though. Thanks. So, for the congested pricing, the toll will have to, as it's necessary to get the revenue, but that could be in murky, stormy waters. As with the new Trump administration, we'll have to see how the designee of transportation, Sean Duffy, and the Attorney General, Pam Bondi, who was once the Attorney General for Florida under Rick Scott from 2011 to 2019. And second, I do agree with Commissioner Zuckerman on something, that nobody likes to pay more, but increases are necessary. So at some point, there will have to be a toll and fare increase due to inflation and with the price of the consumer price index. So with that being said, boys and girls and ladies and gentlemen, please Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Kwanzaa, Happy New Year, and have a great 2025. God bless you. David, over to you.
Thank you very much. Our final speaker is David Kupperberg.
Hi, my name is David Kupferberg, Vice President of Bus Advocacy at New Jersey United. For the Rockaway Line Rehabilitation and Resiliency Project starting next month, the Rockaway shuttle is supposed to be free for the duration of the project. Great. Long Island Railroad fares at the Rockaway station are also proposed to be discounted temporarily to $2.75 per trip, and the round-trip ticket discounted to $5.50 for the duration of the project. Well, this is great for the people who live in the eastern Rockaways. What about those who use express bus service in the western Rockaways? They also deserve a temporary discount. I think that the base fare for the QM15, QM16, and QM17 should be temporarily discounted to $3.50 and $1.75 during the off-peak for those eligible for reduced fare discount. Such a proposal would be fair to those who live in the western Rockaways. Let's make it happen. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes the public speaker section of the meeting.
Thank you, David. All right, who has had a chance to peruse the November board minutes? If whoever has, can you give me a motion to approve them, please? Thank you. Second, any comments, edits, deletions, corrections? Hearing none, all in favor? Thank you, Mark. Aye. Opposed, abstention, motion passes. Thank you very much. There is no finance performance report this month. Do not groan because because Kevin will provide us a brief verbal update. Or that too.
Thank you, Neil. I'm going to turn it over to Jay in a second because the big issue is to talk adoption of the budget and the financial plan, which we presented last month to committee and the board. So just in terms of also what we reported last month was results through October. And then the November plan and the budget for next year is based on assumptions, so that's what's on the table. But, you know, good news to report for the month of November. We're seeing, you know, ridership and fare and toll revenue to basically be on pace with what we have assumed in the November plan. So we feel good about the estimates on fare and toll revenue. As it relates to operating expenses, we continue to run the expense budget actually slightly below. So we think November had, you know, we had lower spending than is built into the plan. Now, some of that, you know, what we go through a whole exercise at the end of the year and then the early, how much of it was just timing related and how much of it was real savings. We'll kind of work through that. On the dedicated taxes and subsidy side, almost everything is in for the year. A couple more big payments coming in the next couple weeks, but as it relates to dedicated taxes, state and city subsidies, again, we're seeing you know, pretty much right on plan. We probably will end up a little bit better on some of the dedicated taxes, but you know, not on a percentage basis, not a lot. But again, I think the takeaway is, you know, assuming you know, we have a decent December, the most latest through the end of November lays a good foundation for the budget and financial plan that's in front of you that I'll can turn over to Jay to go through in more detail.
Thank you, Kevin. So I'll be going over the 2025 final proposed budget. In brief summary, last month we did a whole deck of presentation slides, so I will present a few slides to just refresh everyone's minds of what we will be voting on Wednesday. So, as a reminder, these are our two pie charts of where the money comes from and where the money goes. We'll focus on the expense side, but briefly on the revenue side. Fare box and tolls represent about 39% of our revenue, and dedicated taxes are 43% of the revenues that the MTA expects for 25 budget. On the expense side, the 2025 budget is proposed to be $19.9 billion. This continues to be 3% below the 2019 levels in real dollars, all while investing in service on all modes, including new for 2025 Queens Network redesign funding, paratransit services growing by a 5% growth rate, Penn Station access, as well as more fare evasion mitigation efforts are included. And not to mention, this includes $500 million in efficiency savings for across the board, the MTA. All while keeping debt service to 13% of the operating budget, below the 15% that was projected earlier in the year. As all finance folks, we like a good numbers Excel chart. So briefly, this summarizes all the details that I went through last month. I'll hit the major highlights here. Subway and bus fare box revenue over the financial plan. The changes since July are very minor. Commuter rail fare box revenue is projected to be higher in the November plan compared to the July plan. We've seen increases in ridership on the commuter rails above 80%, and we're reflecting that in the financial plan. Toll revenue slightly above our projections from July. Subsidies are on target from the July projection, and there's a small change in the fare and toll increase timing. On the expense side, operating expenses are kept to a small number of $300 million over the plan period, offset by debt service savings of about $150 million. Overall, as I highlighted last month, this brings the deficit in fiscal 2027 to $378 million, and in 2028 to $419 million. Overall, $100 million less than what we had projected in the July financial plan. Now it's working, the clicker. All right, as a reminder, some of the risks to the financial plan. If there's a slower economy or no real estate recovery, as you recall, we talked about real estate taxes earlier being much lower than projected. We right-sized that in the July plan. If they're on target, there's no risk to the financial plan, but if there's a slight movement, that could lead to $300 to $600 million on an annual cost basis. Casino revenue, we anticipate licenses for the casino revenues to start in 2026. If there's any slippage in that timeline, there's $500 million at risk on an annual basis for each license. Paratransit reimbursement, our financial plan assumes 80% of the costs will be shared by the city, a continuation of what's been in effect. If there's a change to that, that could impact the financial plan or annually $200 to $250 million. Paid ridership, we've seen a steady meeting of the ridership and fare box revenue targets recently, but if there's any change to that ridership projection, there could be an impact to the financial plan. And lastly, we anticipate, and the governor has committed to the capital program funding, but if there are any changes to that or a lower amount, there would be higher operating expenses as well as debt service costs. So that's my high-level summary. I'll take questions on the plan, and then we can take a vote.
So I'm wondering about potential impacts of lack of federal support is a risk. And I think I've been reassured that it's not much, but I'd like to know what could happen if we really have an aggressive effort by the feds to, not provide support to the MTA.
Well, I think you should think of it in three buckets. One are federal formula dollars that we use every year for capital. That's approximately under about $2 billion per year, which is about $500 million a year higher than previous times before the IIJA was passed. So that has another 2 years to run. So that's $2 billion a year federal dollars for capital. Most of that now going forward, we project as part of the $14 billion contribution to the 25 to 29 plan. So as it relates to federal formula dollars, the impact if that got curtailed significantly would probably have a bigger impact on the 25 to 29 funding. The other important element is the full funding grant agreement for Second Avenue Subway Phase 2, which is about, I think, $3.4 billion from the federal government. That's an agreement subject to ongoing appropriation over multiple years. So, we need, as we move forward on that project, we're going to be taking the risk that they'll continue to fund appropriations for Second Avenue Subway Phase 2. The third piece is kind of part of that. What do we assume with the reauthorization of the transportation program? Do we assume, does it, it's roughly $2 billion of formula dollars for the next couple of years? Then it would reduce back down to the $1.5 billion. Can we get a reauthorization that keeps it at $2 billion, or will it just revert? But again, that's more of a 25 to 29 impact. We do competitive grants for everything from the electric buses to ADA stations and so forth. So the ability for us to continue to compete. And then I guess the only other thing is we are still waiting on FEMA reimbursement from COVID-related expenses. We have about $600 million in the financial plan of claims that we've now submitted that we're waiting for reimbursement on.
Good question, David. Others? Okay, hearing none, let's have a motion to vote on this to pass it up to the full board. Can I have a motion to approve the budget? Thank you, Mark. Second. Thank you, David. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, abstention, motion passes. Congratulations to our co-CFOs. On to Olga for the next couple of items, please, on finance, please.
Good afternoon, everyone. The first action item is the approval of the TBTA Special Obligation Resolution, authorizing real estate transfer tax revenue obligations. Earlier this year, TBTA Board approved submitting this new bond resolution to Capital Program Review Board for their approval. The CPRB approved this resolution early in the year, and now we're bringing it back for the final approval and ratification. This resolution authorizes the issuance of bonds secured by real estate transfer taxes, which flow into the capital lockbox and which the state provided to the MTA with the explicit purpose of funding the 2024 capital program and the future capital programs. MTA expects to issue approximately $2.5 billion of new real estate transfer tax bonds next year to fund transit and commuter projects in our 20 to 24 capital program. Please let me know if you have any questions on this action item.
Any questions? Go.
Should I run through all of the?
I think we can do them all as a package. So
Okay,
why don't we just go through all
excellent.
three?
So then,
Paige allows the package voting, I've noticed.
thank you, Paige.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Second action item today is approval of the authorization to issue 2025 MTA and TBTA bonds and bond anticipation notes to finance projects in the approved capital programs and to refinance outstanding debt, as well as to authorize reimbursement resolutions. Every year before the start of the following year, we seek approval of bond issuance in that year. For 2025, we seek to authorize the following not to exceed amounts: $7 billion for transit and commuter projects, $550 million for bridges and tunnels own capital program, $506 million for congestion pricing, and $1.2 billion for working capital obligations. With respect to the authorization for congestion pricing infrastructure, that's largely for refinancing of bond anticipation notes. The authorization amounts have a little bit of room built into it, but are largely consistent with the November financial plan and the 2025 budget issuance assumptions. I can take any questions on this action item. All right. Moving on, so the third and the final item for today is the approval of the update to criteria for selection of banks that provide credit and liquidity facilities to MTA. In order to attract a broader base of financial institutions eligible to provide new replacement letters of credit, credit facilities, liquidity facilities, and lines of credit for working capital, we are seeking to amend existing requirements and reduce the minimum number of ratings for qualifying banks and financial institutions from 3 to 2 ratings. In the current market, investors generally only require that financial institutions carry 2 ratings, and as a result, we don't anticipate any negative pricing consequences from potential investors in MTA bonds. And furthermore, we expect that this update will allow us to attract a broader base of potential financial counterparties. We already have a very diversified, good portfolio of counterparties we're working with, but this will allow us to broaden it even further and bring in a few additional marginal financial institutions that we can start working with, and this increased competition may also result in lower fees that we would pay on these facilities.
Okay, thank you for those 3. Can I have a motion to approve all 3? Thank you. Hate a second. Thank you, David. Any comments, questions? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, abstentions, motions pass. Lucille.
Thank you, Chair Zuckerman. The Rockaway line is served by the A and S shuttle trains and carries over 9,000 average weekday riders and serves as a vital link between the Rockaway Peninsula and Queens and the rest of New York City. In 2012, the line suffered extensive damage from Superstorm Sandy, and A-train service was suspended for 7 months. While MTA was able to complete emergency repairs to restore service, more work is needed to make significant permanent repairs and protect the line from future storms. The Rockaway Line Rehabilitation and Resiliency Project invests $393 million to safeguard the bridges and viaducts on the Rockaway Line, guaranteeing the reliability of these critical connections for the next 50-plus years. Beginning January 17, 2025, and ending May 19, 2025, MTA will reconstruct the elevated Hamels Y and rehabilitate electrical and mechanical systems on the South Channel Bridge. Construction cannot be completed in piecemeal outages, and a 17-week outage is necessary to complete the work safely and cost-efficiently. The MTA is proposing 2 temporary fare promotions to mitigate the effects of this long-term service outage and provide alternate forms of transportation between the Rockaway Peninsula and the rest of New York City. Long Island Railroad will discount the peak and off-peak Far Rockaway ticket, currently $7 in the peak and $5 in the off-peak, to $2.75 for trips to and from the Far Rockaway Long Island Railroad Station. Far Rockaway tickets can be purchased at Far Rockaway Station or in the Train Time app if customers share their location with the app to confirm they are near the station. This will allow customers who normally travel on the A train to utilize Long Island Railroad service and to provide additional travel options for Rockaway customers. The S Shuttle, the Rockaway Park Shuttle service between Broad Channel and Rockaway Park Beach 116th Street, will be temporarily suspended during the 17-week outage and will be replaced by a special fare-free S-Train shuttle serving all stations on the peninsula between Far Rockaway Mott Avenue and Rockaway Park Beach 116th Street. The special S shuttle service will not operate during the first and last weekends of the 17-week outage and will be replaced by a modified free shuttle bus operation on those 2 weekends. The revenue impact is estimated to be upwards of $375,000, and it is recommended that the MTA board adopt these temporary fare promotions.
Okay, well, I'll first look to our New York City Transit Chair and our Long Island Railroad Chair to see if they have any comments on these. Good. Then motion. Thank you. Second? Okay. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, abstention, motion passes. Lizette, please.
There are 2 items this month for Finance Committee approval. There are 2 MTA this actually can be found in the December 2024 Finance Committee book. The first item is the award of a competitively negotiated estimated quantity miscellaneous service contract for the management of the MTA's Small Business Development and Mentoring Program to McKissick WSP Joint Venture. The contract term is 7 years, and the total estimated amount is $112.7 million. The MTA developed and implemented the SBDMP with the goal of increasing small business participation on public works contracts with the MTA. Through this program, small businesses receive classroom, on-the-job training, and technical assistance on prime construction contracts. McKissick WSP JV will manage all of the aspects of the development and mentoring programs, including providing training on skills development like estimating, project scheduling, and bidding strategies, mentoring services through all phases of construction, as well as bank loan repayment administration, payment tracking, and attending project meetings. This contract will be managed jointly by C&D and the Department of Diversity and Civil Rights. The second item is a retroactive change order to the competitively negotiated personal services contract awarded to Aetna Life Insurance for New York City Transit Medical Benefits Program. An additional not-to-exceed amount of $4.7 billion will be added to the contract to cover the retroactive extension period, which will run from January 1st, 2022 through December 31st, 2025. This change order is to ensure continuity of services while we complete the award of a new competitive procurement whose term would begin on January 1st, 2026. The original base contract term was 5 years that ran from January 1st, 2017 through December 31st, 2021, and covered the provision of medical health benefits for approximately 150,000 New York City Transit represented employees, retirees, and their dependents. Prior to its expiration, a successor RFP was issued and received approval from the board in September 2021 to award the new contract to Aetna. A protest followed and was found to have merit based on an error by the consultant used to evaluate the proposals. And as a result, the RFP was canceled and the contract with Aetna that had been approved by the September 21 board was not executed. The MTA retained a different benefits consultant to provide assistance in executing this retroactive contract extension with Aetna and to support the issuance of the replacement RFP. Through negotiations and changes to the plan design, the pricing utilized during this retroactive extension period is lower than the original base contract, and a new replacement RFP was issued earlier this year and is expected to be awarded in early 2025.
Okay, let's get a motion first for the item, and a second, then we'll ask questions. So motion.
Motion, I'll second.
Thank you, Mira. Second. Okay, great. Okay, questions, comments. Mira.
I had a question for the small business development. Is there a cap on the amount of contracts that dollar value of the contracts that they manage?
The program itself will carve out a number of contracts that are bid out specifically for participants of the Small Business Development Program, and there's a maximum value of $3 million. If you have more specific questions about the program itself, we have Chief Diversity Officer Lourdes Zapata who can help answer them.
Do we know what the ratio is between the amount of the contract and the amount of what we're paying for the support of the contract through this joint venture?
So these will be oncoming procurements, so we don't know what will be coming down the pike for the entire 7 years.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we can probably provide additional information on the previous iteration of the contract and how they related to the supportive program. But for this one, this is an as-needed estimated quantities contract that really will be drawn down depending on the projects that are being set up.
Okay, so the maximum amount is $112 million over 7 years?
Yes.
Okay.
I have a question about the health insurance. As everyone knows, this thing has driven me bananas for a while. I just want to make sure that we're going to go after the people that made the mistake to make sure that we get whatever
Great
we
question.
are
responsible for.
Yes.
So,
We have done a lot of work to determine the damages that the MTA has suffered because of this error, and we are pursuing those damages. And we've been working with our legal department in order to do that.
and Paige, you'll keep us updated on how we go? Yes. Okay, great, thank you. Then I'll vote.
So I want to build on that question or that comment, which is, I don't know if it's appropriate for this venue, and we could save for an executive session, but understand the magnitude of that, because
You made a
even the passive voice of, was found to have merit based on an error. Like, I think just getting some sense of how big of a deal, and frankly, the impressiveness that you found this thing, or whomever found this error, is worthy of I think, an executive session discussion.
Happy to provide that for you.
Thank you. Other questions?
No, I would, great, that's
Please.
perfect, Neil, I would love that.
Great. Let's do that privately.
Absolutely.
Okay, great. Okay, we have a motion, we have a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye, opposed, abstention, motion passes. We have the work plan. It's will be voted on in January, so if you have any comments or questions on the work plan that's in the book. Otherwise, we'll discuss it the next session. Governance approved our charter with a stamp that left no trace of being rubber or inked, so it was quick. It was quick. It was very quick. It was thorough. It was complete. Regardless, are there any comments on our charter? No? Hearing none, back to Lizette for... It's funny. Back to Lizette for information items for procurement, please.
We have been busy. We have a number of information items. There are two information items for Metro North the Metro North Railroad Committee requesting board approval as follows. The first is one made on behalf of Metro North and Long Island Railroad to award a 3-year sole source miscellaneous procurement contract to BBM Railway Equipment LLC for preventative maintenance, inspection, repair, and part supply for car hoists and truck turntables. The second is a request to approve a competitively solicited miscellaneous service contract to Port Imperial Ferry Corp., DBA New York Waterway, for a term of 4 years with 3 2-year options. The contract will provide ferry and ancillary services, which includes the Haverstraw, Ossining, and Newburn Beacon ferry service routes. There's one information item for the Long Island Railroad Committee requesting board approval as follows. This item is a request to approve the exercise of option 3 of the contract for the design, manufacturing, testing, and delivery of up to 44 dual-mode locomotives awarded to Siemens Mobility, Inc. The 44 dual-mode locomotives are needed for the replacement of existing LIRR passenger diesel locomotives that are beyond their service life. These locomotives are more eco-friendly than the current locomotives and will cut airborne emissions more than 85%. There's one information item for the Transit Committee requesting board approval to exercise the option 2 of a contract awarded to Kawasaki Railcar Inc. and purchase 435 additional subway cars, which include 355 closed-ended cars and 80 open gangway cars, and related non-car items such as spare parts, special tools, and diagnostic test equipment for New York City Transit's Department of Subways. There's one information item for the Bridges and Tunnels Committee requesting board approval as follows. The item is a request to approve a 1-year extension of a personal services contract awarded to Gannett, Fleming, Engineers and Architects, PC, for additional project management office consultant services for the New York Customer Service Center contracts.
Great. Questions? Thank you for that completeness. David Florio, sir, real estate, bring us home.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Real estate has no action items, but we have one transit-oriented development action item for consideration and approval. The item is the conveyance of Metro North property interests in the Wakefield section of the Bronx to facilitate an adjacent transit-oriented development. Real estate has 2 information items. The first is a memorandum of understanding between the City of New York and MTA in support of accessibility improvements at New York City Transit's Broadway Junction Station in Brooklyn, which serves the AC, L, J, and Z lines. The second is a short-term parking permit between Metro North and Premium Outlet Partners for the use of parking spaces at the Harriman Station in Woodbury, where Bear Reichenstein of MTA Transit-Oriented Development is here to answer any questions regarding the action item.
Okay. So we're voting on the TOD, yes?
That's correct, sir.
Okay, that's great. Okay, comments on the, motion to approve the, thank you, Mark. Second, thank you, David. Any comments or questions on the TOD project? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, abstention, motion passes. Thank you for that, David. I know it's obviously a very important part of our drive for affordable housing and other things with having TOD across the region, so it's great to see those. Any new business? Hearing none. Motion to adjourn. Thank you, Mark. Happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. See you Wednesday.